Hey, Colin, just wanted to say, as one of the naysayers, when you first suggested you might be taking down your early episodes, I was really worried that that stuff was just gonna, you know, disappear. But in going back, picking out the sort of threads and putting responses together with the topics, those new episodes that you're putting out, the sort of repackaging, is really, really great stuff, and I really appreciate the time and effort you must have gone to put those things together. Really enjoyed listening to them, and yeah, long may it continue. Take care, fella. Bye.
Hello, I'm Colin Green, and you are listening to Spike Pit. I've got 3 children. I've got 2 boys and a girl. They're all gamers in one way or another. Both my sons play in our D&D group on a Monday night. The youngest is 9, my eldest is 14. And that's been working out well. I wouldn't say I'd given up on my daughter, but today, shock horror, she announced that she wanted to come along to the Monday night game. So she has got a character because we've played a few games. We've played Maze Rats and 5e D&D. I think that's about it. But we dug out her D&D character, sorted her out some dice. She's put a little bag together ready for the game. I've checked it out with my man Ricky, the DM of the moment, as it were, and my brother who hosts it, who you know, that's Darren. So we're good to go. So Monday night it's going to be me rocking down to my brother's with all 3 kids in tow. So it's the full complement, and it's getting pretty busy around the table now. All the chairs taken up, as my youngest said. We've got no more chairs. I would encourage anybody, not that you need my encouragement, because most role players I know, they are always looking to get their kids into it. It is good to have your own homemade group. It's got me out of a dry spell of gaming on many an occasion. Even if it's just playing board games or whatever, it is good to have that sort of captive audience, as it were. And they're all willing. There's no forcing anyone into it. I did hear a certain gentleman, he called into one of the other anchorites and was a bit perturbed because he was keen to get their grandchildren into gaming, and there's a bit of spousal disapproval. I can't understand that. I think, yeah, I felt a little bit demoralised by that, if I'm honest, and I can't think of anything better than having all the generations sat round the gaming table. Like I said before, we've got quite often 3 generations sat around the table. You know, my mum and dad, they'll game as well with us. My kids get to play with their grandparents all the time. And, you know, there's a lot of teachers talk about all the benefits for development and education with playing role-playing games. Got the whole literacy and the numeracy of it all. Kids really get into their books. Like my youngest, he would read the sort of rubbishy books they bring from school. You know, Roger Red Hat Goes to the Farm and all that old nonsense. He comes home with them and would toss them across the room. He'd be quite upset. I'd say, well, look, if you don't want to read that, mate, but we'll just have a look at some Star Wars or whatever. You know, I didn't want him to be put off of books. He's got into his fantasy and that, and now he's reading all the Harry Potter books. And I mean, some of them are, for a 9-year-old, some of them are quite an intimidating book, especially as they get into the later books. They're massive. You know, he comes and tells me, oh, I just finished this or that, and it's 750 pages or whatever. I think that's really good. So I want to encourage that, and I think role-playing is a good way to do it. If anybody else has got any stories of how they've got on with role-playing with kids and that, I'm really eager to hear that. I started them off with, what's that, RPG Kids or whatever, one of the kids ones. I quite liked it as a system. I think my little girl, she got into it a bit more. Hero Kids RPG, that's the name of it. She liked it because there's quite a good crafting element to it. There's a bit of colouring and there's some game components, and it's a sort of dudes on a map. You're moving like these little standees around. And my youngest, he'd got wind of 5e, so he was having none of this like what he saw as a kid's game. He was having none of it, even though at the time he was only 7. But that's fine. I'm cool with that. That's how it goes.
Yep. I've been chucking dice with my kids for years. They love it. It's a fun time. It's great bonding. My sons have been playing since they were 4. My daughters have been playing since they were 9. I think every member of my family has played at the table at some point or another. I guess you could say it's gone multi-generational because my first copy of BX was played with my Nana. It's a fond memory right there. So yeah, roll on, man. Roll with your kids. It's a great time, and my kids love it. Our current favorite is a Savage Worlds hack that I've been working on for years just for them. Nothing beats rolling dice with your family. If you can play some games with your family, it's a great bonding experience. I highly recommend it. That's my favorite gaming group.
Yeah, so that was Frank T from Frank T's liner notes. I think I'm going to have to start calling him the wise man of gaming with all these great insights. I don't know, I really like Frank's kind of laid-back wisdom and the fact that, you know, his favourite gaming group is his family. I think, you know, it kind of, for the emotional types out there, you know, that could really hit you in the feels. I totally know what he's talking about. We just finished session 100 in my return to gaming. We're playing 5e, and I just got my daughter to play. Well, she got herself to play, actually. So I had all 3 kids sat around the table. Yeah, it went really well. Everybody was happy. Ricky, the DM, afterwards, we were talking, and he felt he'd given a bit of a perhaps lackluster performance, but he's pretty new to the system. And I said to him, the players never see it the same as the GM. As a GM or DM, you've got it in mind how you think the session's going to go. You're really your own worst critic, I find. And quite often a session in the player's eyes can be totally different to how the GM sees it. You know, you've got these ideas of what you want to achieve, and they're involved with their character and absorbed perhaps by the story or other things that are going on around the table, and they don't see you sort of panicking perhaps because you can't find a rule, or you're struggling over a ruling, or you're just not happy with your pacing or something like that. And that goes over a lot of people's heads. I think perhaps not so much if you've got a table full of GMs. You know, they've been both sides of the equation, and perhaps they can see a GM when he's struggling a little bit. But at the same time, they're normally a more sympathetic crowd. If they're any sort of a friend or whatever, they're going to kind of help you out. Maybe if there's a bit of dead airspace in the game, you can strike up a conversation. As a player, you can strike up a conversation with the other characters sat around the table and just give that GM a little bit of breathing space, you know?
You mentioned, your children playing, which is great, and even reading. Once your 9-year-old gets a little older, I definitely suggest that you show him some of the books from Appendix in the first edition AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. Of course, you know your children and be careful about what, you expose them to and all that.
I don't know if these are actually on the Appendix N, but there's a couple of authors that I'm looking at going into. I've picked up a copy of the Earthsea books by Ursula Le Guin. I just started reading them to my youngest, and we just sort of take shifts on the reading. So he does a bit, and if he's flagging or looking like he's drifting with his interest, I take over and read a bit more and perhaps ham up the drama a little bit. And then the other one is Lloyd Alexander, and I'm pretty sure these are on the Appendix N, the Chronicles of Prydain. And I don't know too much about them. I believe Walt Disney's Black Cauldron was based on, I don't know how accurately, how accurately based on the Prydain Chronicles. Yeah, so, yeah, thanks for calling in. Yeah, I've been enjoying your... Oh, that's a point I was going to say. On your podcast, you mentioned a couple of times you seem a little bit self-conscious regarding perhaps being a bit prudish. But, I I wouldn't worry that. It's not an accusation I'd like to level at people anyway. I think that's a personal thing. As I game with kids, the likes of Lamentations of the Flame Princess, whilst I admire the creativity and I really like the production values and one thing and another, and I buy quite a few of the books, it's a kind of almost guilty pleasure really, because it's kind of difficult for me to get them to the table without quite a lot of questions getting asked. Obviously, they're not all quite so risque, as the subject matter can be a little bit near the knuckle for gaming with younger children. Could almost push it out with some teenagers, I suppose, if you weren't careful. Use them almost as a cautionary tale in some instances. Definitely handle with care, I think, there.
Hey Colin, Jason here, listening to your latest episode on the way home. So I want you to listen to your own advice, and I want all other podcasters to hear Colin's words. When we do Anchor August and listen to old episodes, if you've gone back in your back catalog and deleted the old episodes, we can't listen to them in Anchor August. You see where I'm going with this? If you delete your old episodes, we can't listen to them.